I'm going to go ahead and already warn or encourage our Saturday night listeners that the conclusion of perhaps one of the sketchiest of sketch week matchups is going to happen probably while we're on the air, as Miami and Texas A&M are set for a 9 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. And I don't think that we owe it to the viewers to wait until like 12:30, 1 a.m. Like we will be going as that game is rocking and rolling, maybe even carry you all the way to the finish of it with some live commentary. But Texas A&M head coach Jimbo Fisher has gotten some of the tough questions this week about play calling, about who's got responsibility, about if you've ever thought about opening anything up. Miami, as I mentioned, has nothing that you can really take and feel like you understand exactly what Miami is this year. Like, do you think that Texas A&M's defense is going to cause problems for Tyler Van Dyke in the Miami offense?
I think it could. Yeah, I went back and watched the Miami game against Southern Miss, and I, man, there's some things I saw that I liked, and there's some things that I saw which concerned me. I think Miami's defensive front is pretty good, but let's talk Miami's offense for a second, since that's what Chip asked about. They're not in sync right now. I got to tell you, I remember we were sitting there at ACC Media Day, and we were looking at the spreadsheets, and like, who is going to catch passes for this team?
Oh, Restrepo or bust. They ain't got anybody else.
Yeah. And look, Restrepo is a good 3. He's a nice get open if you get him on a backer safety number 3 slot type guy. If Restrepo is your 1, this is not a good offense. Okay. That they have some, I'm not saying issues, but they have some uncertainties right now at the receiver position. Now, I know they were high on Jacoby George in the offseason, and he was suspended for the first 2 games. So I think there is some chance that Miami's offense looks better in this one because Jacoby George is back. Now, I don't know how much he'll play, but I don't want to just discount the idea of him coming back, making this thing look better. But right now, Van Dyke does not look in sync with his receivers, and it won't show up in the completion percentage because he was 20 of 29 for 240. It's 69%, right? With 241 yards and a touchdown and a pick. But if you watch this, it didn't look smooth. He was a count late getting rid of the ball. And I'm not sure if that is, hey, he's still learning this new offense. And it's not like you have to read defenses to the same level running what Lashley runs, right? I mean, that's like receivers outside the numbers, some of those old Baylor concepts incorporated with it. It's a, Danny can tell you, like, it's a very different defense or offense than what Miami is trying to run right now. It also could be because he doesn't trust these receivers yet, right? Like he needs to see that they're going to be open as opposed to trusting that they're going to be open. Right now, they're not really in sync like the numbers would suggest. They had to run a flea flicker to score on Southern Miss in that third quarter, right? Like they didn't hit a lot of explosive plays. They were under 6 yards of play against the Golden Eagles. I mean, I think Liberty, despite having their starting quarterback get knocked out, was over that in the prior game. So I'm not really seeing it with Miami's offense just yet. Their run game was very poor. I mean, they were, take out the sacks here, sack adjusted rushing yards, 211, but on 42 carries. Like that's not great. They also allowed 4 sacks to the Golden Eagles and 8 tackles for loss, more pressures than that. Now, they did have some offensive linemen out. We'll see if those guys get back. I think Zion Nelson likely comes back this weekend. So I could see Miami's offense looking better than I think it's going to look, but I will tell you, they are not looking as good as the surface numbers suggest they're playing right now.
I'm very curious to see how their offensive line holds up against Texas A&M's defensive line. I mean, that's the neutralizer of any offense. If you can get pressure on a quarterback, they didn't get to chase Bryce very much. Texas A&M didn't, but they hurried him a bunch. They did get some hits on him, and that'll impact you just as much as the sacks will, if not more. That, to me, I think is the bigger challenge that you're going to face for the Hurricanes. I mean, that's always the difference, is the offensive and defensive line play. And I think, as much as we can write off Texas A&M, very curious to what they do. Still have some weapons, man. I tell you what, Smith and A-Chain have been doing a fantastic job. I mean, they're like the only highlights you've seen from Texas A&M's offense. But I think even with Jimbo's, ancient philosophy, he's played against this school a lot. He knows he can maybe try to lean on them and use some of that physical edge that he's tried to build SEC teams when he's at Florida State. He's got one now that he's built up. He's going to try to move the ball just the same way he always has, and I think this is going to be an environment where it's going to be hostile. It's going to be loud. Your edge pass rushers have an advantage against their tackles. I think that was going to be interesting. Has Jimbo said anything? I mean, I know he was pretty vague. Are we going? We're just rolling out Haynes King again? Just here we go.
He basically said like they'll run the guy out that gives them the best option to win. You mentioned He's faced this team, Danny. He's actually faced this defensive coordinator a number of times. So Kevin Steele was the DC at Clemson for 3 years, 2009 to 2011, when Jimbo was the OC at FSU. Right? I'm sure he faced him in the 80s when Jimbo was at Auburn and Kevin was at Tennessee. He definitely faced him again in was it 2016 to 2020?
A&M Auburn, yeah,
at Auburn, right? I mean, like so he's faced Kevin Steele 7-8 times now as a DC versus OC matchup. So that is
I lean Steele.
He had some success against him when he was at Florida. But I mean, now he had Dalvin Cook and he had other weapons.
I think if we're going like X's and O's matchup, I think a Miami fan looks at the familiarity and is like, oh, good. Like Miami should know exactly what to do.
I think so. I mean, and just I can't discount A&M playing a lot better in this game because I've covered Jimbo when I was just on a single team beat, and I've seen his teams play like they didn't care about a matchup and didn't take it seriously, and like they were looking forward to the next matchup too much. 2011 Virginia comes to mind. This game, just watching it unfold, reminded me an awful lot of that. 2012 NC State. So they're going to get some guys back. Bryce Foster, their center, who's an NFL prospect at A&M, has been out with mono. And if he's back, that is a major difference because they were having issues on the offensive line. I mean, as well as they just, they're trying to run something that you can't really run right now with their players.
We were seeing Texas A&M defenders getting stiff-armed into the ground. And App State does have a great mentality for physicality, but look, that was like effort.
It's still App State.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like when Texas A&M is having those kinds of performances, effort and focus have to 100% be at the top of mind. But I will say that all the negativity, like again, can't leave sketch week analysis without talking about vibes. I would be worried that this Miami team might come out a little too hot early, right? How many penalties, false start, you like things start to mount up. You get a roughing the passer that extends a drive when you thought you had a third down stop. If you avoid that and it's tight late, that's when I think the pressure switches to Texas A&M because those Texas A&M fans, all 100 and whatever thousand of them, if it's like 20-17, the offense hasn't been good and Miami's still got a shot. At that point, I would say edge Miami because Danny, maybe you can speak to this from experiencing it on the field, but I know I've been in stadiums where there is a home field disadvantage, where just all of the dread, like you can feel it.
Do you know who they fall on the most? And I've been in this position as a quarterback who's struggling, and you're trying to earn the confidence of your teammates, but that's probably easier than it is of the fans because they're the quickest ones to start that murmur. There is nothing more uncomfortable than that little buzz. Maybe it's not even booze. It's just it's just an unsettling feeling. I had that when I was at Florida State. I threw 3 picks in the Orange Bowl my first year starting in 94 and got benched in that game. And it was what are we going to do? And, the next game you come back and you can just sense it. You can feel it. And for me, it wasn't a game in College Station on the road. It was a beatable opponent. We were able to kind of get back on track. Haynes King is going to feel that pressure mount unless, if he goes out there and if it's 2017 and he's got 2 touchdown passes, I think that alleviates some of it. But if it's 2017 and there's a kickoff return and, a pick 6 and a couple field goals and they haven't been great on third down all day, that's when those murmurs really get uncomfortable. Early in my career, whether in the NFL or college, I almost liked going on the road because you're supposed to get booed on the road. Like, yeah, everybody hates me. Like, let's bring it on. At home, when you're like, do they hate me? That is the worst place to be as a quarterback.